The camera was steady, broadcasting live from the heart of Khan Yunis, a city already bearing the deep scars of conflict. The correspondent, speaking in clear, measured tones, was describing the scene outside Nasser Hospital. It was a place of supposed safety, a sanctuary where the wounded were brought for care, where journalists gathered to bear witness. The air was thick with the familiar, tense hum of a war zone, a constant backdrop of distant sounds that had become the normal rhythm of life. In that moment, the report was just another dispatch, another window for the world into the daily reality of Gaza. Suddenly, the world's window shattered, a deafening explosion ripped through the air, the live image on screens across the globe violently shook before freezing on a chaotic, blurred frame of dust and debris. The correspondent's voice was cut off mid-sentence, replaced by a wall of static and then an unnerving silence. For viewers watching from thousands of miles away, the abrupt end to the broadcast was shocking. It was a stark and brutal reminder that the people reporting the news are not separate from it. They are embedded within the very danger they are tasked with documenting for the rest of us. In newsrooms and living rooms, there was a collective intake of breath. What had just happened? When the dust began to settle after the first blast, the true cost of the attack started to become horrifyingly clear. Among the first to rush toward the scene of the explosion were other journalists, a team of dedicated emergency rescue workers. They were driven by instinct and duty. The journalists to document the aftermath, the rescuers to pull survivors from the rubble. They moved quickly, their brightly colored press vests and medic uniforms standing out against the gray backdrop of destruction. These individuals are the first responders of truth and life, running toward danger when every human instinct screams to run away. The hope of finding survivors and documenting the scene was tragically short-lived. A second, more powerful explosion struck the very same spot just minutes after the first. This second blast was devastatingly effective, catching the group of journalists and rescuers who had gathered to help. The area was instantly transformed into a scene of unimaginable carnage. The very people who had come to report on the suffering and to alleviate it had become the victims. The attack claimed the lives of several well-known local journalists and paramedics, individuals who were familiar faces in the community, known for their courage and commitment. The loss was felt immediately and profoundly across Gaza and within the international journalism community. These were not anonymous casualties, they were colleagues, friends, and family members. The attack on the area surrounding Nasser Hospital unfolded in two distinct, terrifying phases. The first explosion hit a building adjacent to the main hospital complex. Eyewitnesses described a sudden, blinding flash followed by a thunderous roar that shook nearby foundations. Thick black smoke and concrete dust billowed into the sky. The explosion interrupted a live news broadcast. Within moments, a crowd formed. Paramedics rushed out. Close-up, paramedic uniforms. They carried stretchers searching for the wounded. Journalists hurried toward the impact site. Close-up, blue press vests and helmets. This is the critical window where first images and testimony are gathered. Their actions were predictable, professional, and tragically fatal. The second strike came 3 to 4 minutes later. It landed in the exact same spot where responders and journalists had gathered. Diagram: first and second strikes relative to Nasser Hospital and the journalists' gathering point. This tactic, known as a double tap, is brutally effective. Infographic: double tap targeting first responders. Survivors described a second, far larger explosion. It caught the group in the open, turning rescue into massacre. The deliberate timing is what makes this so disturbing. Survivors painted a picture of absolute horror. In the immediate aftermath of the double strike, the Israeli Defense Forces issued a swift and direct statement. An official spokesperson stated that the military had been conducting a precision operation against a senior Hamas commander who was confirmed to be operating from a command and control center hidden within a building near the hospital. The IDF claimed that the presence of journalists and rescue workers was unfortunate, but not the intention of the operation. They insisted that the target was legitimate and that all necessary precautions had been taken to minimize civilian harm, though they did not elaborate on what those precautions were. This official military narrative was immediately and vehemently disputed by authorities in Gaza. The Gaza Ministry of Health released a statement declaring the attack a deliberate and barbaric massacre of innocent civilians, journalists, and medical personnel. They flatly denied the presence of any military commander or command center in the vicinity of the hospital, asserting that the area was a well-known gathering spot for the press. They accused the Israeli military of knowingly targeting the group of first responders, citing the double-tap nature of the attack as clear evidence of intent to kill those who had come to help. As international pressure mounted, the Israeli military's explanation began to evolve. A few days after the initial statement, a senior military official provided a more detailed account, suggesting that the intelligence about the target was highly reliable. Nasser Hospital, located in the southern city of Khan Yunis, was more than just a medical facility. It was a cornerstone of the entire humanitarian operation in Gaza. As one of the largest and best-equipped hospitals in the Strip, it served as a primary trauma center for the southern region, receiving a constant flow of civilians injured in the ongoing conflict. Its emergency rooms and surgical wards were perpetually overwhelmed, doctors, nurses working around the clock in incredibly difficult conditions to save lives. For the wounded and their families, the hospital grounds represented a final hope for survival, a place of healing amidst widespread destruction. Beyond its medical importance, Nasser Hospital had also become an unofficial but essential hub for the international press for the local press. With its relatively stable power supply from generators and a location that was, until the attack, considered relatively safe, it served as a de facto base of operations for journalists. Reporters filed their stories from its corridors. The double strike on the journalists and rescue workers at Nasser Hospital. The double strike on the journalists and rescue workers at Nasser Hospital drew immediate and widespread condemnation from around the globe. The United Nations Secretary-General issued a powerful statement expressing his profound shock and dismay. He emphasized that international humanitarian law is not optional. It is a binding obligation on all parties to a conflict. He specifically pointed out that hospitals and medical personnel are granted special protection under the Geneva Conventions. He added that journalists operating in conflict zones are considered civilians and must be protected as such. Any deliberate attack against them constitutes a war crime. Committee to Protect Journalists responded. Reporters Without Borders responded. They labeled the attack a heinous act and a dark day for journalism. These groups maintain detailed records of journalists killed in the line of duty. The incident at Nasser Hospital marked one of the single deadliest attacks on the press in the region's recent history. They called for an immediate and transparent investigation, demanding those responsible be held fully accountable. Their statements highlighted a disturbing trend of increasing attacks on media workers in conflict zones worldwide. Governments of several Western nations expressed deep concern. Their foreign ministries issued statements calling for maximum restraint and a thorough and swift review. The language was diplomatic, but the underlying message was clear. The killing of journalists and targeting near a major hospital had crossed a line. These international reactions put significant diplomatic pressure on the Israeli government for a more credible explanation. International law experts debated the legal implications. They pointed to the principle of distinction. As the dust has settled, the central agonizing question remains: was the deadly double strike a tragic mistake or something far more sinister? This question hangs over the ruins of the attack site, echoes in the corridors of power. UN headquarters in New York. Military command centers in the Middle East. The answer carries implications for rules of modern warfare, the safety of journalists, the prospect of future accountability, the line between battlefield error and potential war crime. Those who call it a mistake point to urban warfare's complexity. The Israeli military, acting on what it believed was credible intelligence, may have miscalculated the risk to civilians. The second strike may not be a deliberate double tap, but a pre-planned follow-up that didn't account for first responders arriving. A catastrophic failure of battlefield intelligence and of procedure. A story of error, not malice. A growing chorus. Human rights investigators surviving journalist Palestinian officials argue the evidence points to a deliberate act. They cite the timing. Minutes after the first, classic double tap, a tactic designed to target rescuers. Nasser Hospital was a visible gathering point for the press. From this view, it wasn't a mistake, it was a message, a brutal warning. No safe places. Bearing witness can be fatal. We're left in a deeply unsettling place. No credible, independent investigation. Both narratives persist, doubt festers. Without accountability, no justice for victims and no deterrent against repeat tragedy. Families of dead journalists, families of paramedics. The surviving press corps in Gaza work under a cloud of fear. Nasser Hospital is now a symbol of eroded international norms. The truth, like many victims, remains buried in the rubble, waiting to be uncovered. For now, the world has seen enough to know that the cost of truth-telling in Gaza is increasingly paid in human lives.